September 10th, 2025, a sunny afternoon in Utah. A 31-year-old man is debating students on a college campus, doing what he's done hundreds of times before. His last words were, counting or not counting gang violence?
Transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
It's 5. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Seconds later, a single gunshot rings out from 142 yards away. Charlie Kirk, one of America's most influential conservative voices, falls. And in that moment, everything changes. And what came after is even more disturbing than the assassination itself. When news first broke about Charlie Kirk's death, the internet exploded with chaos. Fake AI-generated videos claiming to show his final message spread like wildfire. People were sharing doctored images supposedly from The Simpsons that had predicted his assassination. Social media became a battleground of rumors, conspiracy theories, and outright lies. But beneath all that noise, beneath all those fake videos and manufactured theories, there was a very real tragedy. Charlie Kirk didn't die in some mysterious circumstances. He wasn't the victim of some elaborate government conspiracy. What happened to him was far more straightforward, and somehow that makes it even more terrifying. Because on that September afternoon at Utah Valley University, in front of roughly 3,000 people, Charlie Kirk was assassinated during one of his famous Prove Me Wrong debate events. He was literally in the middle of a conversation about mass shootings when he became a victim of one himself. The irony is almost too dark to process. The shooter is 22-year-old named Tyler James Robinson, who had planned this for over a week. He arrived on campus that morning at 8:29, positioned himself on a rooftop by 12:22, and at 12:23 p.m. fired a single shot from a high-powered bolt-action rifle. Kirk was hit in the neck. A reporter who witnessed it described seeing so much blood come out of the left side of Charlie's neck, and then he went limp. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. For 33 hours, there was a manhunt. FBI agents combed through evidence, analyzed security footage, processed the crime scene with 3D laser scanning technology. They found the rifle hidden in nearby woods. They discovered DNA on a towel that had been wrapped around the weapon. They recovered a screwdriver with palm prints. They even found what forensic experts call a forearm print on the rooftop, rare evidence that happens when a shooter stays in a prone position for a long time. And then Robinson's parents saw their son in FBI surveillance footage. They convinced him to turn himself in. He surrendered on September 11th. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Text messages where he admitted to the shooting, saying he was tired of his hatred. A hidden note left for his roommate that read, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Digital trails, physical evidence, witness testimony from thousands of people who were there. This wasn't some shadowy organization. Federal investigators were clear about that. They found no evidence linking Robinson to organized left-wing groups. This was, as they described it, a lone individual who committed a terrible crime because of his personal dislike of Kirk's views. But who was Tyler Robinson? That's where this story gets complicated. He grew up in a conservative Republican family in Washington, Utah. But over the past year, something changed. He became, as his family described it, increasingly pro-gay and trans rights oriented. He started a romantic relationship with his roommate, someone described as a biological male undergoing gender transition. His mother said he'd grown more political, and at family dinners, he'd talk about how Charlie Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views.
Robinson specifically targeted Kirk because of his political expression and his opposition to LGBTQ+ rights. That's what prosecutors allege. That's what the evidence supports. He faces the death penalty in Utah State Court. But To understand why this assassination sent shockwaves through America, you need to understand who Charlie Kirk was and why he became such a lightning rod for controversy. Charlie Kirk was 18 years old when he co-founded Turning Point USA in 2012. Literally started it in a garage in Illinois with a conservative activist named Bill Montgomery. By the time of his death, 13 years later, TPUSA had exploded into one of the most powerful conservative youth organizations in America. We're talking 3,500 chapters across all 50 states, 250,000 members, and massive influence over young conservative voters. Kirk's strategy was brilliant, if controversial. He created professor watchlist databases to monitor allegedly biased liberal professors. He hosted these confrontational prove me wrong debates on college campuses where liberal students dominated. He organized massive rallies featuring President Trump and other top conservative leaders. He built a media empire. His podcast had over 500,000 monthly listeners. He had 5.5 million followers on X and 7 million on TikTok. President Trump himself credited Kirk with helping him win the 2024 election, specifically because of how effective Kirk was at mobilizing young voters. Kirk had become a trusted confidant, a key political ally. He visited 25 college campuses before the 2024 election on his You're Being Brainwashed tour. But Kirk was also one of the most polarizing figures in American politics. He vocally opposed DEI programs, abortion rights, gun control, and LGBTQ plus rights. He promoted what he called Christian nationalist principles. He spread COVID misinformation. He promoted false claims about the 2020 election. He made controversial comments about the Civil Rights Act and Martin Luther King Jr.
Where MLK, in my personal opinion and based on every objective analysis, he actually gave us more race focus and less emphasis on character and conduct. Because here we are 60 years later. Do we talk about race less or more in the last couple of decades? I'm not only blaming MLK for this, but his core driving philosophy was not about a colorblind society. That is a line in one of his speeches. He would actually be closer to a race Marxist, almost akin to a DEI type philosopher if you go deep into his writings, especially later in his life. So, and I think we as conservatives and Christians must reconsider some of the mythologies and some of the icons and the symbols that we hold up, especially as we try to reorient ourselves in a broken culture.
He promoted the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, and his organization helped fund buses that brought supporters to Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. Love him or hate him, Charlie Kirk had built himself into someone who couldn't be ignored, and that made him a target. What happened after Kirk's assassination might be the most disturbing part of this entire story. Within hours, social media became a war zone. Some people posted content celebrating or mocking his death. Phrases like "Do Trump next" and "Elon next, please" started appearing. Videos of the actual shooting spread everywhere, some of the most widely viewed content in social media history. It was graphic, it was traumatic, and it was unavoidable. President Trump immediately blamed radical left political violence and ordered flags flown at half-staff. He called Kirk a martyr for truth and freedom. Conservative leaders rallied, calling for action. Democratic leaders, including Biden and Obama, condemned the assassination and called for an end to political violence. But then things got really dark. The Trump administration launched what many observers called the most significant crackdown on political speech in modern American history. The Pentagon started investigating military personnel who made comments about Kirk's death, resulting in firings and disciplinary actions. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that non-citizens who celebrated Kirk's death would face immediate deportation. Dozens of educators lost their jobs for comments about Kirk. A Ball State University administrator was fired over a private Facebook post and filed a federal lawsuit alleging First Amendment violations. Vice President J.D. Vance encouraged people to report anyone celebrating Charlie's murder to their employers.
So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility.
Yeah, so basically nothing that he said there was true. He knows that it's not true. He knows that the vast majority of political violence comes from the right. It's very well established. We've seen it in even our recent American political history with assassinations, with riots, with coup attempts. You know that he doesn't believe a damn word coming out of his mouth.
After Jimmy Kimmel's show was suspended for criticizing the administration's response, Trump suggested broadcasters could face license revocation. Civil liberties organizations filed lawsuits. Legal experts warned about government censorship and drew comparisons to McCarthyism. Social media platforms implemented stricter moderation policies. A chilling effect spread across America. People became afraid to speak their minds about anything political. Kirk's widow, Erica, was elected CEO of Turning Point USA and vowed to continue his mission. His memorial service drew over 90,000 people. The organization reported tens of thousands of new chapter requests. So here we are. Tyler Robinson awaits trial, facing the death penalty. Federal lawsuits challenging the government's speech crackdown are moving through the courts. Turning Point USA is stronger than ever. And American political discourse? It's fundamentally changed. A 22-year-old man with a rifle ended one life on September 10th, 2025. But the consequences killed something else, the already fragile ability of Americans to disagree without violence, to debate without bloodshed, to express political views without fear of government retaliation. Charlie Kirk became in death exactly what many of his supporters claim he was in life, a martyr. But for what exactly? Freedom, democracy, or something darker? A justification for the very authoritarianism he claimed to oppose? The verified facts are clear. The broader implications, those are still unfolding. And they should terrify all of us, regardless of where we stand politically. Because when political violence becomes the language of our disagreements, nobody wins. We all lose. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this.